What's going on, guys? Back with another video. So today we have something here from Mark Nixon, who just posted this, and it's a Mark Carney, I guess it's a media scrum or some kind of press conference, but he made himself look kind of stupid, so we'll get into that. Mark Nixon says Canada will be the only country in the world to reach net zero. The kicker is without an economy. Check this out. So we're going to have a look at this. Now, before we do get into it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help grow the channel, and I appreciate you guys so much for doing that for me. So let's have a look at what our Prime Minister has to say.
Tomorrow, we'll announce the first tranche, the first batch of these projects. Projects that will increase Canada's independence, boost our...
Oh, he's got some projects finally. Oh, so 6 months in, that's what warp speed or lightning speed, the fastest we've ever seen projects get built. Took him 6 months just to announce it. I guess that's lightning speed if you're Mark Carney.
Economy, align with the interests of Indigenous peoples, and advance our climate goals. Canada's new government recognizes that addressing climate change isn't just a moral duty that we have to our kids and grandkids. It is that moral duty. But it's also an economic imperative for the competitiveness of our businesses and the workers they employ. And so to those ends, this fall, we will release a new climate competitiveness strategy that focuses on results over objectives and investments over prohibitions. Third, we will remain relentlessly focused on bringing down costs for Canadians, building on the elimination of the consumer carbon tax, building on that middle-class tax cut. For example, during the summer, we took a decision to uphold the CRTC's plan to expand mandatory wholesale access. That's a mouthful. Mandatory wholesale access. What's in it for Canadians? One thing. It will reduce broadband costs for Canadian families. That's why this government took that decision, because we are relentlessly focused on Canadian...
Yeah, okay, that's enough of that. First of all, we'll see if you actually do it. No one's going to, well, some people are going to believe him, but and I'm sure most of you, don't believe him at all when he says, oh, the costs are coming down, the costs are coming down. Like, why would they think that when all you want to do... And first of all, he says he's gotten rid of the carbon tax. First of all, he has not. We do not have an executive order here in Canada. It was passed through Parliament, which it was. It has to be voted out, and it was not. Just shows you how gullible some people are when they just believe everything a politician says. Second of all, we also now have the Clean Fuel Regulations Act, which is basically a law or a legislation that's put in place where you're going to be punished if you don't use clean fuel. Carbon is not considered clean fuel, so guess what that means? I'm sure you can all figure this out. That's a carbon tax, and there will be no rebate for it. Worse than Justin Trudeau. And now this guy's saying, oh, here we come. We're going to be making sure that we bring the cost of living for Canadians down. Things are going to get cheaper. Here we go. It's like, listen, I hope he's right, but let's be honest. Don't hold your breath. This Liberal government has been saying things like this and, sunny ways, things like that for the last 10 years, and it's only gotten worse. So we'll believe it when we see it, okay, Carney? I'm not going to give you credit for words that sound positive. And then we have to go into the whole climate issue. If you go ahead and look at Abacus, their top priorities of important issues amongst voters, climate used to be in the top 5. It's barely in the top 10 now. It's 16% of people have that in their top 3 issues. So this is not nearly as important as, the economy, cost of living, etc., etc. These are more important issues, and he's going to focus on the climate again. And again, hey, yeah, build towards clean and green energy. If it creates jobs, good jobs, and it's cheaper, which it should be, hey, great, and it's good for the environment. So perfect, we all win, right? But it's not a more important issue than all these other things. So focusing on it in a time where Canadians are just like, I can't pay for groceries, I can't afford rent, I'll never buy a home, it's not safe outside. The more you impoverish people, the less of them will care about the climate, because climate is about future. Climate change is about, or supposed to be, about hope. Good luck selling that to people who have no hope to buy a home or have a good job. It's so hard to find a job even. It's ridiculous. And here he is, he's going to come out and say, well, we're going to be the first country, or the only country actually in the world, to reach net zero. At what cost? Because if it keeps hurting Canadians and costing Canadians like the carbon tax did, you're not going to have very much luck with that, Mark. And I just have a feeling this whole climate narrative is to distract people from... They're fear-mongering people to not worry about your job or your future or the fact that you'll never buy a house or have any real money. Worry about the climate, guys. Just be scared of the climate. And some people buy it. I don't. A lot of people don't. I'm not saying climate change isn't real. Of course it's real. I'm just saying they're going way overboard with how dangerous and scary this is. Meanwhile, you have people who are like, I can't pay my rent. And the more of those people that come around, unfortunately, under this Liberal government, there's going to be more and more people who can't afford rent. They're not going to care about the climate. It's dropping down to 16%. It's going to keep dropping. This is a not important issue for Canadians right now, for most of them. Now, I also have a kind of a funny video here. This is from Christy, and it's called Notice the Difference. And it's basically the difference between a conservative and a liberal. Now, not everything I agree with here, but it is kind of funny. So we're going to have a look at this.
I want you to notice the difference. A conservative thinks you're wrong. A liberal thinks you're evil. A conservative says, I disagree. It's a free country. A liberal says, I disagree. You should lose your job. A conservative tells their kids no. A liberal asks their kids for their permission. A conservative wants freedom from the system. A liberal wants freedom funded by the system. A conservative says, toughen up. A liberal says, trigger warning, reality. A conservative trusts their gut. A liberal trusts 42 peer-funded studies. Until they disagree with one, then it's misinformation. A conservative waves a flag. A liberal waves 17 flags and still calls this country oppressive. A conservative will just block you. A liberal, on the other hand, will report you, dox you, and email your employer. A conservative supports free speech. A liberal supports free speech as long as you agree with them. A conservative says you're responsible for your life. A liberal says society failed me. A conservative fears losing their rights. A liberal fears being misgendered by a barista. A conservative runs a family. A liberal owns a democracy where the 4-year-old has equal voting power.
And here's the thing. The part that's most correct here, in my opinion, is that conservatives do have hope. I do see that in the conservative community. And by the way, I used to be way over to the liberal side when I was younger. Doom and gloom, nothing matters, nothing's going to get better. That's poisonous for your mind to think that way. There's some days where I still, go through that, but it's not nearly as bad as it was as I've shifted closer to the right. I'm not, and again, people think I'm some far-right conservative. I am more center, really. Slightly center-left, slightly center-right. It's so close, it's hard to even pinpoint it. But that's up for you to decide. I do not have any far-right extreme values. I do not have any far-left extreme values. I think it's crazy. But when you're on the center-left, center-right, wherever I am, a lot of people on the left will call you a far-right extremist. But as you grow up and generally you come a little bit closer to the right or you go on the right, you actually understand how the world works better. You understand that, hey, it's good to have hope. A lot of people on the right, are Christians. They have strong faith and they seem to be a bit happier. The most miserable people I've ever met are liberals. And that is the truth. If you talk to liberals, you see the doom and gloom come out all the time. I try to stay away from that because I understand it's poisonous for your mind. But as I've kind of grown into learning a little bit more about politics, understanding issues, and hey, what works, what doesn't, I've come definitely close. I used to be, again, firmly on the left. I am definitely not on the left anymore. I'm center. Some may say slightly left center. Some may say slightly right center. Either way, that's where I am. And I've gotten happier and more hopeful as I've moved closer to the right. That's all I'm saying. But either way, let me know what you guys think of this video. That's going to be it. I do have another video coming up shortly, so definitely stay in tune for that one. And again, please don't forget to like and subscribe and drop your comments. I appreciate you. I'll be back shortly with a new one.